Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you for your practice, your dedicated study and practice of Buddhism. Thank you for being here, part of this Sangha. And as such, don't forget to like and subscribe, especially. That really helps bring this Sangha into fruition on YouTube, right? More eyeballs to find these resources to support our enthusiasm, our encouragement, our strength of our resolve in our practice. So always needing to keep that bolstered in the face of so much distraction and, samsaric stuff, right? We live in a time in the world where we're so preoccupied with distractions, it's hard to find your own mind in anything anymore. You're constantly swayed this way or that way. It's all you can do it's kind of like treading water, yeah? We'd like to feel like we're great swimmers, but most of the time we're dog paddling and going, yikes. Yeah. Okay. Life analogies, yeah. And as Mahamati may be very well expressing that very thing, let us continue with Shakyamuni's dissection of, as ineffectual as it might seem at times, using words and language to circumlocute this idea that we have this amazing superpower. We have a mind, a sentient mind that isn't tied necessarily to physical ownership, identification, self, ego, right? Manipulations, which is where all of those distractions come from, where they emanate from, and what is their power is stuff, right? Things. But the mind isn't a thing. It's not stuff. It's an emergent property. It's a energetic witness of the process of all things. The process of all thingifying, the process of what samsara is trying to own without having to own it, because it's constantly happening moment to moment. What are you doing? This perspective of mind allows us to grow up, mature mentally to the perspective that these illusions of ownership and mastery and identification and ego and eternalizing stuff, not internal, eternalizing things, is the very thing that manipulates us and makes us feel bad. Pain, suffering, anxiety, stress, it's all from trying to maintain that illusion that we somehow command the things of the universe, instead of understanding that we actually are much greater things, in that we can perceive and participate in the process that is universe. That we can actually be part of that very process that is constantly manifesting moment to moment to moment. Owning stuff that's gone already and just instantiating along with us, it's a silly, childish idea of life. Life is so much more amazing and powerful, and it can only be seen and observed in that regard by a sentient mind, our sentient minds. Yeah? So Mahamati, still talking about the dharmas, these processes, yeah? Of the 5 dharmas, name, appearance, discrimination. Sorry. This is still Shakyamuni talking. I'm so accustomed to each section starting out with a question from Mahamati. Further, Mahamati, the dharmas, name, appearance, discrimination, right knowledge, and suchness or appearance. Right? Can you hold appearance? How do you define appearance? With a bunch of characteristics, right? Like blue-ish, solid-ish, fluid-ish, large-ish, small-ish, bigger-ish. All these characteristics, though we make them sound like, we identify that's blue, really what we're saying is there's a visual perceptive sense that I own that indicates to me a certain quality of light emanating from that thing, that suchness, that I call blue within a huge spectrum of light that is blue, light blue, cerulean blue, navy blue. But that's blue. See, that identification, that's what locks us in to a definition, a discriminated identity that without being conscious of it, we're saying, I own this description. I am the identifier of that. Therefore, the ego is mine. That belongs to me, that definition. It's a little twisted, but that's what we do all the time. Whereas Buddhism says, you're just seeing a process instantiating itself that has these myriad qualities that you're discerning in your mind by virtue of your sense organs that are designed to be collectors of data. But don't get locked into the data, the warehouse. Just appreciate that you have a tool to detect it as it's happening, right? Moment to moment. Anyway, so these dharmas, name, appearance, discrimination, right knowledge, and suchness. Appearance is that which is seen as having such characteristics as form, shape, distinction, features, images, colors, etc., as I just said. This appearance, out of this appearance, ideas are formed, such as this appears as a jar, a door, a box, of whatever, by which one can say, this is such and such, and no other. This is name. To the appearance we label, we put upon a name. When names are thus pronounced, appearances are determined. This is this, like I said, that is blue. And there is discrimination, because that is blue, then what's next to it is not blue. Saying this is mind, and this is what belongs to it. That these names and appearances are, after all, unobtainable, Because when intellection is put away, the aspect of mutuality in which all things are determined ceases. When you realize that all things are energy and formations, happening, not happened, then the ideas, the intellection that permanentizes stuff, or our collection of things, it falls apart, right? It vanishes. To be perceived and imagined. This is called the suchness of things. And this suchness may be characterized as truth, reality, exact knowledge, limit, source, self-substance, the unattainable. This has been realized by myself, and the Tathagatas truthfully pointed out, recognized, made public, and widely shown. When in agreement with this, the truth is rightly understood as neither negative nor affirmative, discrimination ceases to rise. You're not preoccupied with identification anymore. You're just witnessing this process happening, yes? And there is a state of conformable to self-realization by means of noble wisdom, which is not the course of controversy pertaining to the philosophers, Shravakas, and Pratyeka Buddhas. This is right knowledge. In other words, not right as opposed to wrong, but correct in its penetrating understanding of the actual process of life. These are, Mahamati, the five dharmas, and in them are included the three svabhavas, the eight vijnanas, the twofold egolessness, and all the Buddha truths. Remember, Mahamati was asking Shakyamuni to define all these things. What Shakyamuni is saying is, once you understand the process of life, of every phenomena, then all of these other constructions, like the Nidana, like the Four Noble Truths, or the Eightfold Path, or any concept in Buddhism, you start to understand the dividing line between having to be conversant about how to get this insight versus actually experiencing the insight. They're not the same. Right? Like I've said before, we can talk all day long about what it's like to have a drink of cool, fresh water. If you've never had a drink of cool, fresh water, all you can do is talk about it all day long, but you never get that refreshing sensation of drinking cool, fresh water. You must do it in order to experience it. Which, again, I return you to the Lotus Sutra. This is why we chant. This is why we have a mandala. This is why we instantiate in our sentient mind, while in this physical world, that mental faculty, ability, function to witness moment to moment this amazing process of life-ing, being. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu in my samsaric self-instantiation emergent mind. Namu. Myoho Renge Kyo. Get it. Am in it. In this moment, in this moment, in this moment. Everything is happening. In this, Mahamati, reflect well within your own wisdom, and let others do the same, and do not allow yourself to be led by another. Do you hear the echo of Follow the law, not the person. Don't be led by others. Lead yourself. Realize yourself the truth, because only you can experience it as you need to, as you can, as your karmic freight train enables you. Somebody else's karmic freight train may not relate specifically to you, and so what? Even if they attain enlightenment, does that enlighten you? Only you can do that. Buddhahood is inherent in your freight train, in your karma. So it's your karma that must awaken. The five dharmas, the shavabhas, the eight vijnanas, the twofold egolessness, they are all embraced in the Mahayana. The teaching, the conversant dialogue pointing to. Name, appearance, and discrimination corresponding to the first two svabhavas, while right knowledge and suchness are the parinishpana. That doesn't mean a whole lot to Lotus Sutra practitioners, but if you're fond of the terminologies of earlier teachings and the linear development of Buddhism over time, that has meaning. And he's addressing this student body personaged in Mahamati who are coming from those earlier teachings, yeah? And now we start a new section. So, and as has been mostly the form, Mahamati has another question. It is told by you, the emancipated one, in the canonical text that the Tathagatas of the past, present, and future are like the sands of the river Ganga. Emancipated one. Is this to be accepted literally, or is there another distinct meaning? Please tell me. It's somewhat tiring, isn't it? I mean, okay. He's asking the same question again. He's trying to pick apart the words of Shakyamuni, and Shakyamuni is constantly telling him, the words serve a purpose, but the purpose isn't the words. The purpose is the insight, the great release, the great emancipation, the perspective shift that allows you to be the all-knowing observer instead of wrapped up in the stuff. Why can't you get that? Well, describe with more words what that's like, and then I'll know it. No, the words aren't going to make you know it. You need to experience it. The words are just pointing. That doesn't get you to the destination. It's just an arrow. Mahamati. So Shakyamuni says, Mahamati, do not take it in its literal sense. Like he even has to say that again. See, and again, this is like I mentioned many, many times, this idea of multiple lifetimes that you see and read in translations of Shakyamuni's sermons. He's not talking about actual periods of time, past, present, and future. He's wrapping past, present, and future in this current experience of timing, because that's what we're doing. We're creating time-space moment to moment. Without time, there's no need for any of this. This universe, this instantiation of life, which we are part and parcel of, is the sole reason we can perceive it because we're in it. But we don't need to be tumbled around in the rapids of it. We can simply be aware of the process. How many words do we need to attach to that before it becomes something we experience rather than own, qualify, put in the warehouse, pull out when we need it? It's ongoing, constantly, right? Moment to moment. All right, Mahamati. For Mahamati, the Buddhas of the three divisions of time are not measurable by the measurement of the sands of the Ganga. Why? Because an analogy, which is superior to anything of the world and surpasses it, cannot be called an analogy, since there is in it something resembling and something not resembling. The Tathagatas, the fully enlightened ones, do not give out such an analogy that has in it something resembling and something not resembling, and that is superior to the world and surpasses it. But this comparison is only given out, Mahamati, by myself and the Tathagatas, in which the Tathagatas, the fully enlightened ones, are said to be like the sands of the river Ganga, which must be a translation of the Ganges. The idea is to terrify those ignorant and simple-minded ones who, tenaciously clinging to the ideas of permanency and impermanency and giving themselves up to the ways of thinking and the erroneous views of the philosophers, follow up the wheel of transmigration. To understand that each moment is a past life, a present life, a future life. It's the transmigration through moments of time that we exist. Exist as a verb, not a chunk, not a thing. Life is an experience. Yeah. To those who, anxious to escape the intricacies of the wheel of existence, seek after the excellent state, thinking how this could be realized, it is told them that the appearance of the Tathagatas is not like the blooming of the Adambara flower, because they will thereby see that the attainment of Buddhahood is not a difficult undertaking and will put forward their energy. But it is told, in the canonical sense, that the Tathagatas appear as rarely as the Adambara flower, and this is in consideration of those people who are to be led by me. Buddhahood is instantaneous. It's very easy. You just do it. Those of us who understand that, Lotus Sutra practitioners, we just do it. But to those who don't understand that, who can't perceive that yet, they need to be moved along, right? They need to become more self-aware, to understand what their self is a construction of. It takes some time, especially today with all the distractions again. We have so much, they call it identity politics. Come on. Yeah. Everything is a politic, a philosophical question of how to be amongst others rather than how being evaporates the idea of others is just all sparks, all instantiations of the same energy. When, Mahamati, the establishment of the truth itself is pointed out, it surpasses beyond measure anything in the world that can be afforded as an analogy to it, because analogies are made of stuffness, thingness, staticness, comparative, discriminative identification. So anything we do with words to try to identify, make an analogy, point to, is stuck in samsara. It is not itself the experience. Because the ignorant are incapable of this insight until they are capable. And only they themselves can do that. Only the sentient mind can go, oh, here I am. And thus there is an unbelief on the part of the ignorant and simple-minded. What are you talking about? Can't be. Where is it in the warehouse? Show it to me, and then I'll believe. It's not in the warehouse. There is indeed no room for analogies to enter in the realm of self-realization which is effected by means of noble wisdom. The truth transcends all the notions that are characteristics of the Sita, the Manas, the Manovijnana. The truth is the Tathagatas, and therefore in them there is nothing describable by analogy. What's like Tathagata? Tathagata. Yeah? But Mahamadi, sometimes a comparison is made. That is to say, the Tathagatas are said to be like the sands of the river Ganges, because they are the same and impartial to all things, because they are free from imagination and discriminations. For example, Mahamadi, the sands of the river Ganges are tossed about by the fishes, tortoises, porpoises, crocodiles, buffaloes, lions, elephants, and so on. But they are free from imagination and discrimination, for they do not resent, saying, we are downtrodden, right? You never hear sand lamenting. Or, we are not, right? I'm sand, I'm not sand, I am me, right? There's no self-awareness of a grain of sand. It's just the process happening, instantiating, yeah? Again, Mahamadi, why? Mahamadi's stuck in counting the grains of sand. Yes, Shakyamuni has used that very problem and exploded it to such a degree, right? The grains of sand crushed, and worlds and the universe going by all of these worlds and crushing them down into grains of sand. And for each grain of sand, you pass another galaxy, and then you crush that galaxy, right? He makes the numbers so unreasonably huge and unfathomable because he's trying to destroy that idea that everything can be quantified. This attachment to calculation, discrimination. Do you understand? This is the expedient means of Shakyamuni's sermons since day one. But obviously, even in the early Mahayana, the toughest thing he's having to do is that now that he's discriminated and identified all of these mental processes, he's having to destroy all of that work in order to sweep it out of the way for clarity. And a lot of students have spent years latching on to every single word, like in each word is going to be the clue they need, rather than understanding the more abstract implication of the words. So there's a great struggle in the Lankavatara with trying to get rid of that physicality of life, not annihilate it, not extinguish it, but to understand it from a completely different point of view. In the same way, Mahamadi, they are not discriminative, pure in themselves, separated from defilement. The self-realization of noble wisdom, which has been attained by the Tathagatas, the fully enlightened ones, is like the river Ganges, and their powers, psychic faculties, and self-control are like the sands. And however much they are tossed about by the fishes of the philosophers, by the ignorant who belong to other schools, They are not troubled by imagination and discriminations. They just are. Because of their original vows, the Tathagatas, whose hearts are filled with all the happiness of the Samapati, are not troubled by imaginations and discriminations with regards to beings. Therefore, the Tathagatas, like the sands of the Ganges, are free from partiality because of their being devoid of likes and dislikes. There's no qualifying. There's no fate. It's all the same amazing process. As two, we are. Together, happening moment to moment. To illustrate Mahamati as the sands of the river Ganges partake of the character of the earth, the conflagration that will break out at the end of the kalpa may burn the earth, but does not destroy its self-nature. Mahamati, the earth, is not consumed because of its being inseparably connected with the element of fire, and it is only the ignorant and simple-minded that, on account of their falling into false ideas, imagine the earth being consumed by fire. But as it supplies the material cause to the element fire, it is never consumed. In the same way, Mahamati, the Dharmakaya of the Tathagatas, like the sands of the river Ganges, is never destroyed. So, this is a little bit more, and this translation must be faulty here in trying to describe the subtlety of things happening, becoming, instantiating, abiding in destruction all the time, every moment. Doesn't mean they don't exist. That would be to say they don't instantiate. Well, that would be a total denial of the universe. There's none of that in Buddhism. There's no nihilism like that. The void isn't a place. The void is a removal of the thingifying baggage of the warehouse in order to provide an awareness, a witnessing of a much huger process that just is ongoing. And this example, it's a poor example, but I have to believe the translation makes it even more obtuse. It's basically saying just because you burn a piece of paper with a fire, you can say the paper was consumed by the fire, but paper and paperness, the suchness of paper, isn't destroyed. It doesn't disappear. That one piece of paper fed something we call fire, and it changed forms of energy, but that potential is still there. It's just in an altered form. Just like we are every moment, altering our form and the form of everything around us. And our experience of the forms of it, on and on and on. To illustrate Mahamati, the sands of the Ganges are immeasurable. In the same way, Mahamati, the rays of light of the Tathagatas are beyond measure, which are emitted by them in all the Buddha assemblies in order to bring beings to maturity and arouse them to the knowledge of the truth. This is why I always say, as we build our Buddha-ness, we radiate into our environment that Buddha-ness. Whether our environment understands it or not isn't nearly as relevant as in the fact that they are affected by it. Some will be pushed away from us, some will be attracted to us. That's the nature of a life well lived. Those who want to push that away would be distractions for us, so it's completely reasonable that they would get out of the way. That's why when you're practicing for a while, there are certain kinds of people or situations that don't seem to arise anymore. It's not mystical. It's because you've changed your radiation, your Buddha-ness. And new people pop up, new opportunities pop up in your life. It's not because you chanted for them, it's because your karma got out of the way. Those opportunities were waiting for you to experience them. That alone, when you realize even small moments of that, should inspire you to keep chanting. Oh my goodness, I've been able to do this all this time and I just didn't know. It's been available to me my whole life, but I've been keeping it out of my life? What a dumbass. What a fool. Well, don't beat yourself. This is why I always say, be kind to yourself. You're going to make these discoveries, and sometimes they'll bother you. But don't be too self-critical. It's the nature of samsara, yeah? Just be that much more thankful, grateful that you have this amazing tool. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Keep it, bring it, right? To illustrate Mahamati, the sands of the Ganges do not assume another nature than itself remaining forever the same. In the same way, Mahamati, the Tathagatas, the fully enlightened ones, are neither evolving nor disappearing in transmigration, because in them the cause of making them come into existence is destroyed. Right? Before I started practicing Buddhism, I didn't have Buddhahood. Well, yeah, you did. Like I just said, you just were ignorant about it. You didn't know. Now that you know, don't unknow. That would be truly sad, yeah? To illustrate Mahamati, the sands of the Ganges are unconcerned whether they are carried away or whether more is added into them. In the same way, Mahamati, the knowledge of the Tathagatas, which is exercised for the maturing of beings, is neither exhausted nor augmented. It's just our engagement with the process. Because the Dharma is without a physical body, right? The physicalness is just a moment-to-moment instantiation, a color, a suchness. You could just see a romantic movie. I'm so in love with the suchness of you. Would be such a wonderfully poetic thing to say. I've never heard that in a movie. Mahamati, that which has a physical body is subject to annihilation, but not that which has no physical body, and the Dharma is not a physical body. What is going on with my nose? Apologies. To illustrate Mahamati, the sands of the Ganges, however much they are compressed for the sake of the ghee and oil, are destitute of them. In the same way, Mahamati, the Tathagata, you can't make blood out of an onion, right? The Tathagatas never abandoned their deep concerns and original vows and happiness as regards the Dharmadhatu, however hard they are oppressed with pain for the sake of beings. As long as all beings have not yet been led to nirvana by the Tathagatas, who are endowed with a great compassionate heart. And this constitutes our bodhisattva behavior, instantiation, beingness, our suchness of bodhisattva. To illustrate, again, Mahamati, the sands of the river Ganges are drawn along with the flow of the stream, but not where there is no water. In the same way, Mahamati, the Tathagata's teaching in regard to all the Buddha truths takes place along the flow of the Nirvana stream. And for this reason, the Tathagatas are said to be like the sands of the river Ganges. the flow of life, the flow of the energies manifesting moment to moment. If there were no flow of energies manifesting moment to moment, there would be no Tathagata. Another example of how Buddha-ness can only be experienced in this life. It's not some other place outside of time-space. It's a perceptive shift, a participation, a knowing that is the whole process of the universe. Once again, you are everything and everything is you. Love that song. Mahamadi in Tathagata. Thus come one. Thus come one. Thus come one is the activity of a sentient mind, not the activity of clay turning into a sculpture. There is no sense of going away. Mahamadi, going away means destruction. Mahamadi, the primary limit of transmigration is unknown, not being known. How can I talk of the sense of going away? The sense of going away, Mahamadi, is annihilation, and this is not known by the ignorant and the simple-minded. Mahamadi, if emancipated one, the primary limit of transmigration of all beings is unknowable, how is the emancipation of beings knowable? This is Mahamadi saying, if it's not knowable, what this limit of transmigration is, this great emancipation of this knowing without attachment. How is the how is the liberation of beings knowable? Because of the liberation, Mahamadi. What? Man, he just loves his words. So Shakyamuni says, Mahamadi, when it is understood that the objective world is nothing but what is seen of the mind itself, the habit energy of false speculations and erroneous discriminations which have been going on since beginningless time is removed. That is the nirvana, the enlightenment. How many times has he stated this to Mahamadi? And there is a revulsion or a turning back at the basis of discrimination. This great aha moment, oh, that's what I've been doing. Now I get it. This is emancipation, Mahamadi, not annihilation. Therefore, Mahamadi, there cannot be any talk about endlessness. To be endless in limit, Mahamadi, is another name for discrimination. Apart from discriminations, there are no other beings. When all things external or internal are examined with intelligence, Mahamadi, knowing and known are found to be quiescent. Don't accrue knowledge, be knowledge. What is that? Experience. Experience Buddhahood. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Not quite there in the Lankavatara. Still trying to get rid of the baggage of the words, yeah? But when it is not recognized that all things rise from the discriminations of the mind itself, discrimination asserts itself. When this is understood, discrimination ceases. Those who regard the removers of obstruction, i.e. Buddhas, as neither destroyed nor departed forever, like the sands of the Ganges, they see the Tathagata. Like the sands of the Ganges, they are devoid of all error. They flow along the stream and are permanent And so is the essence or nature of Buddhahood. Here's that word slippage again. Permanent? What he's saying is this state of knowing isn't subject to birth, abiding, and death. That's the physical world, the manifestations of energy. The witnessing of the manifestations of energy is a state of knowing. It exists so long as discriminations exist, and when discriminations cease, then it exists as a potential state. It becomes potential itself. That's what we want to be. Our maximal potential life. No obstructions. Where are we time-wise? Yeah, it's long enough. Okay, this next section, Mahamati's going to ask another question. I bet you didn't see that coming. Okay. What's he going to ask? Regarding the momentary destruction of all things and their distinctive signs, what is meant by all things being momentary? Wow. It's almost the singular thing that you and I talk about since I started these videos, isn't it? But good on Mahamati is finally asking the question. I'm really curious to see how, at this stage of the Mahayana, the Shakyamuni responds. Please be here for that. In the meantime, thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. Me too. We're all doing this together, yeah? All right. Please take care of your health. With that, you have the greatest tool available to you with the least amount of obstruction, your sentient mind. Develop it, practice Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I will see you in the next one. I promise. And with that, bye for now.